new episode of Better Plays Ahead, presented by thegameday.com, your everything betting show. I am Matt Williams. For those who don't know me, I am the lead MLB editor. I do NFL work, everything over at the Game Day. And joining me on the other side is Mr. Frank Ammirante, wearing the green and black of the Eagles today. What is up, Frank?
What's up? What's up? Hyped for tonight's game. Ready to start week 2. I'm relieved week 1 is done. It was just bad beat city. Amon-Ra St. Brown over 6.5, loses by 1 catch. Terrace Marshall over 23.5, I lose by 1 yard. It was just like bad beat after bad beat for me. So I'm just ready to start fresh a new week with tonight's Thursday Nighter and break down the week 2 slate with you.
Yeah, week 1 could be tricky. So, yeah, maybe it's good that we skipped a week because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what tricks the teams are going to play. You never know what, people are coming out of the gate all slow. So we know a little more information. So just to kind of give everyone an idea of what this show is going to be, this is the debut show of Better Plays Ahead. Exactly what the title means. We're going to try to give really good plays for you to make money because, some of you are really serious with betting. Some of you are more casual, but watching the NFL is way more fun when you're making money. Everything's more fun when you're making money. So we're going to be covering the NFL mostly because that's what the season had just braked off. But, as it goes forward into the future, we'll cover all sports. But, we'll get to that later. Right now, we're talking all about NFL week 2 NFL slate. So we're going to start with the main slate because that is, what everyone is going to be looking forward to the next couple of days. But stick around to the end. We'll definitely talk about Thursday Night Football, and we have a huge same game parlay for you to look forward to. Hopefully, start off the week on a high note. But without further ado, we're going to get right into the show. Our first segment is called the Chalkboard, which is where me and Frank are going to just look at the current bets available and tell you what bets we actually like that are completely chalk and that you should bet anyway because they are favorites for a reason. And jumping right in, I'll start with my first bet of the week, and it is the 49ers covering 6.5, sometimes 7.5 right now at the Rams. The Rams look good for week 1. A lot better than we thought they would have with Cooper Kupp out, but let's just start with the 49ers. Brock Purdy looks legit to me. Anyone who was a doubter completely have to backtrack now. I mean, I know last year he looked really good, but again, you never really know. Once the whole summer of the NFL gets a chance to really get the book on him, how is he going to look? Didn't look like a fluke at all. Only 220 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 1 versus Pittsburgh. But that's all he needed to be. They were up big. They weren't running, passing the entire time. If he can be like an above average game manager, they could be the best team in the NFL. So many weapons. Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. Plus on defense, Nick Bosa is back, signed his new contract. He is dangerous. Again, I think they could be the best team in the NFL if they stay healthy. I don't know about betting them for futures because of the health factor, but they're playing the Rams here, the Cooper Kuppless Rams, and they look great on offense. However, Seattle, who they played, they are not San Francisco. The Rams will not move the ball at the same rate, and these Rams do not really have home games. Yeah, they're at home, but it's at SoFi Stadium, SoFi Stadium. So this will be kind of maybe a half San Francisco crowd, if not even more. So yeah, I absolutely love the 49ers to cover 6.5, 7.5 at the Rams chalk. That is definitely a play that I'm going to. Frank, what is your chalk play for week 2?
Well, so that your play leads in right to my chalk play, and it's a chalk parlay where I'm just playing 3 heavy money lines to reduce the juice and keep it safe with that chalk play. And you spoke about the 49ers. Everything you said is on point. And to your point, to add to it, like you would have thought maybe Brock Purdy would have showed a little bit of rust coming off elbow surgery, but there was none whatsoever. It's like he's just a perfect fit for that system, and he's just exactly what they need. Get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. So starting with that chalk parlay is the 49ers on the money line for me. And I'm also adding the Bills, who are coming off a disappointing Monday night showing where, Josh Allen blew the game, ill-advised turnovers, playing hero ball. I have no idea why he's trying to force it in like that. Like Zach Wilson could not move the ball at all. What are you doing, man? But anyways, they blew that game. I think they're going to go home, bounce back, and blow the Raiders out. Home opener, Raiders coming from west to east. That's always tough. I know it's early in the year. Coming into the season, I wasn't high on Vegas, even with Jimmy G. I'm not going to move off that take just because they beat the Broncos by 1 on the road. I think the Bills will win by double digits, but for this chalk parlay, I'm going to just keep it safe. I'm going to play Buffalo on the money line. Also like them in my Survivor League. to finish it off, because if you just do Bills and 49ers, you're going to get like minus 160 juice. I don't like that just yet. So I'm going to go back and add the Cowboys. And, you know, they look terrific blowing out the Giants. Zach Wilson looks like Zach Wilson for the Jets, really struggled to move the ball. They were fortunate their defense forced turnovers off Josh Allen, but part of that was Allen's own fault. So I think the Cowboys will get it done at home, and their defense should really cause problems for Zach Wilson. So you put these three together, you could get about even odds. It's a nice chalk parlay to start off our week 2 wagers.
Yeah, and an important point for everyone. You know, we have a lot of different levels of bettors watching the show. The parlays you mentioned, don't get too cute with parlays, like going, you know, for spreads or alt spreads or anything. Like, you know, the idea is you want to make sure each leg is going to hit. So yeah, I love the idea of like keeping it the money line and not trying to get too cute with like 3 spreads where something could bite you easily. So yeah, I love that. And Dallas, oh my God, the Jets are in trouble. We'll talk about that game a little more, but your Bills play actually goes right into our next segment, which, you know, we just did the chalkboard. Now we're going into It's a Trap. I know everyone wants to hear Admiral Akbar. I'll get a drop for the next show. I swear I'll get one for you. But It's a Trap. The segment is self-explanatory, but here's some bets that, you know, maybe are trending or seem obvious to the public. Not that we're into fading the public. We'll get to that probably another time, but these are bets that are an absolute trap that we're going to avoid, that people are talking about. And my bet right now is the Raiders +9 for minus 110 versus at the Bills. You just mentioned all the reasons, but because of how poorly the Bills looked in week 1, or the fact that the Raiders got a win on the road, people are looking to look at this big number +9, because, you know, sometimes it doesn't even matter. A lot of people, including ourselves, were on the Texans +10 in week 1. Didn't work out, but you know, that is a lot of points in the NFL. But yeah, don't try to get too cute here. The Bills should have beat the Jets. We already decided that they should have beat the Jets. Yes. Josh Allen shit the bed. He turned the ball over 4 times. No, I do not expect that to happen against the Raiders. Josh Allen is not going to have 4 turnovers again. Is he going to make mistakes? Sure, that's part of his game. Brett Favre throw a lot of interceptions. I mean, there's some people that's just built into their game. He's kind of like a gunslinger. Granted, you know, they seem like kind of numbskull moves of points, but he is an elite quarterback. I don't buy some of these people. They're trying to oversell, you know, or sell him completely. He makes mistakes. It's going to happen. But you, Frank, like you mentioned, I know it's early in the year, but the Raiders did have to travel all the way across the country against a team that is like desperate to crush them. There will be no quarter. Relentless scoring by the Bills. This isn't a thing where they're going to be overlooking the Raiders. They just got beat in the first game of the year in a game they absolutely should have won. You shouldn't bet based on motivation. That is not a category or anything you can count on. But in this particular case, I'm pretty sure the Bills are going to be on top of their game here. Again, Vegas, they won a division game against the Broncos in week 1. But they weren't that impressive. On top of that, Devontae Adams now has a boo-boo on his foot. We'll see how that, you know, transpires. It's probably not going to be a big deal. But, man, last year, only 3 teams held opponents to a lower passer rating than the Bills did last year. And I expect Jimmy G to be under a lot more pressure than he was in week 1. He's going to finish under 200 yards passing here easily. But, again, like, you know, I've seen making this that it's a trap. I've heard a lot of analysts saying, you know, the Raiders can play loose. You know, the pressure's on the Bills. Maybe they can catch the Bills off guard. And do you really think the Bills are going to come in underprepared? No chance that's going to happen. I have Buffalo winning this one by 3 touchdowns. I have no problem laying 9 points or more. So, yeah, absolutely 9 points. Do not take the Raiders. It's a trap. What do you think of that play first, Frank? And then go right into your trap play for the week.
Yeah, totally agree. Don't touch the Raiders, even though it's a big line at +9, +8.5 at some spots. To your point about Devontae Adams being banged up, Jacoby Myers, who looked great in week 1 and fits really well in this Josh McDaniels scheme, he's in concussion protocol. Jimmy G might be without both of his receivers, and then you could forget about it. So I'm with you here. I think the Bills should cover that. Only reason in my chalk parlay, I just really kept it safe and put them on the money line. But I do like them on the spread as well. But moving into my trap play, it's the Seahawks at the Lions. They're +5.5. It's moved to +5 in some spots too. Now, looking at that first glance for me, like coming into the season, I loved Seattle. I thought they were going to take the next step. They had 2 first-round rookies, Zach Charbonnet, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Charbonnet went second round. I'm talking about Devin Witherspoon. But the point is they bolstered a roster that already, made the playoffs last year. I love what I saw with Geno Smith. So I'm looking at this line. I'm like, it looks like a lot of points for Seattle, but digging deeper, it is not. And the reason for that is because Seattle's going to be without their starting 2 offensive tackles, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. Now, that's a massive loss of the offensive line, obviously, but we already saw what their offense looked like without those 2 offensive tackles, because both of them left the game like early third quarter or late second quarter. And if you remember, the Seahawks were leading heading into halftime, and they did absolutely nothing in the second half. They really struggled on offense, and I think those pass protection issues are going to really show up once again against Detroit, against your boy who you'll touch on later, edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson. And I wouldn't touch Seattle to cover the spread, despite the fact that it looks like a little bit high in favor of the Lions. I'm going to stay away. I have another play on this game, which we'll touch on later. But if I have to pick a side, it'll be Detroit. I'm concerned about Seattle. I'm not starting Geno in fantasy. It's going to be likely that they try to lean on Kenneth Walker to ease the pressure off Smith. Yeah, this one's a trap.
I feel so bad for Geno in this one. I also have another play that we'll talk about soon, but oh wow, maybe he'll be a buy low in fantasy pretty soon, because he's going to get off to a rough go here to start the season. Maybe when they get they get beyond the first couple of games and that offensive line heals up, things will be different. But those are our trap games of the week. We want nothing to do. We want absolutely nothing to do with the Seahawks plus 5.5, and I want nothing to do with the Raiders plus 9. Those seem to be trendy picks people are talking about. So moving into our next segment, it's a teachable moment. Every week we're going to go in and we're going to just talk maybe a little bit of game theory. Maybe we're learning from a mistake that we have made or we had heard you had made. But yeah, just picture the big rainbow, the more you know. Teachable moment here. And today's teachable moment for week 2 of the NFL is brought to you by Frank. So Frank, take it away.
All right, so for today's teachable moment, don't overreact to week 1. You spend all offseason analyzing these teams. You have takes about them. Don't just, come off that take just because of a week 1 poor result. And I think we see that in the matchup between the Bears and the Bucks. Coming into the year, I thought the Bucks were one of the worst teams in the NFL. Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Now they got a upset road win against Minnesota. But it's not like Mayfield looked that great. He averaged I think under 6 yards per attempt. And it's not like Minnesota's defense is that good, despite improvements in coaching with Brian Flores at defensive coordinator. So it was kind of one of those ugly games that they won. Now for Chicago at home, they laid a complete egg. They got blown out by division rival Packers. So everyone's down on them. But I don't think I'm ready to write them off just yet. I still believe that DJ Moore is going to help Justin Fields. I think coming into this game against the Bucks, they're going to make it an emphasis to get more involved. He only had 2 catches in week 1. So, and he's facing a Bucks team that he's had success against in the past, playing for Carolina. I believe he averaged over 60 yards in his last 7 games against them. He had several, real good games there. So we're getting what I believe is the better team at plus money. They're an underdog. You could get them around plus 128. It may have fallen to around plus 120. I think Chicago will bounce back from their really poor result. So I don't want to overreact to them just because they played so poorly against Green Bay. I think they'll bounce back here. I still think Tampa Bay is one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I'm going to take the Bears on the money line.
I have a question for you, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier. There's a stat that I saw online today: pressure rate over expectation for week 1. This is basically the pressure that a quarterback is under, but an expected rate. Before I get into the one that's for this Bears game, number 31, Brock Purdy, plus 24.7%. That was second to last, right in front of Daniel Jones, who was plus 45.8%. Over expected. That's crazy. So Brock Purdy, he performed really well under immense pressure. But number 1 on this list, at minus 11% pressure rate over expectations. So under expectation was Jordan Love, who plays these Bears. So maybe from just a prop betting standpoint, not necessarily the line. What do we think of Baker Mayfield as possibly a guy who maybe will be playing from behind? Is not going to possibly have a lot of pressure on him, at least basically what we saw in week 1. So yeah, any love for maybe a Baker Mayfield prop bet here?
Well, we saw Jordan Love air it out downfield against this defense. I don't hate it. Baker Mayfield's got a good set of weapons with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. So, if I think it's it's probably, I would imagine, I haven't seen, but I would imagine it's like low 200s, 220. I think it's okay. I wouldn't take it. I think I'm going to just stay with the Bears here, but I definitely understand that angle. The Bears defense didn't really inspire much confidence there in week 1. Although I think Fields is going to have a better effort and lead them to a win here.
All right, before we move on to the betting board, which is the main part of the show where we go over all of me and Frank's best bets for the week, we got a question from the audience we're going to take right now. All right, John L. John Legeza, what is up, buddy? Does anyone circle the wagons like the Buffalo Bills? No, I mean, I'm expecting a bloodbath. I think I kind of gave all my notes on this. Frank, you have anything to add there? I mean, I think the Rams are in trouble.
The Raiders are definitely in trouble here. I totally agree. What he means for circling the wagons is the Bills just sometimes just really blow out teams. Last year they beat the Bears 35-13. They beat New England by 14. They beat the Steelers 38-3. And you know what? That's what this game reminds me of. That win against the Steelers last season where they won 38-3. And Gabe Davis went nuts. Josh Allen had a big game, threw for 424 yards and 4 touchdowns. I could see a similar, elite output from Josh Allen in this one. That's why I ranked him overall quarterback 1 in fantasy, even ahead of Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes this week. So to that end, maybe Josh Allen props are worth looking at as well with passing yards.
Who knows with Josh Allen when it comes to rushing props? I mean, he said he was going to run less, and we all saw the suicide dive that he took in week 1. You could see him maybe wanting to limit mistakes. Maybe he goes off the charts with even the rushing too. So yeah, the Bills, play your Bills everywhere, and they're definitely worth looking for prop bets. So now we are getting into the betting board where we go across. We're not going to go across every game. We're not here to waste your time. Go across every, preview every single game and talk about games we don't really care about. These are just the bets that we make or we're going to be making, and these are the ones we like. So we're going to start with my best bets. My first one, has Frank alluded to earlier, it's the Jets at Cowboys. I'm looking at the New York Jets team total under 22.5, which seems like the lock of the weekend. The Dallas defense versus Zach Wilson. I mean, this is kind of a chalky play. I should have put it in the chalkboard, but we're going to talk about it here. The Cowboys defense made the Giants look like a college team. 40-0. They held Daniel Jones to 15-28, 104 yards and two interceptions. They took him out of the game. I guess they left him in a lot longer because than they should have. The only player to get anything going was Saquon. He only had 66 yards. He's the only one who had remotely had a pulse for the Giants here. Now it's Zach Wilson's turn. I mean, the Jets needed the overtime to score 22 points at home versus Buffalo. Wilson had 14-21, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Now he faces a far more aggressive defense, and which should obviously rattle him because, he makes some poor decisions. So yeah, Jets under 22.5 is an easy bet. Any disagreement from you, Frank?
No, definitely not. Looks like you got one hell of a line there. You must have locked that one early.
Oh, I locked it in the second it came out.
Oh man, that's a good teachable moment right there. Look how Matt locked in this team total immediately when it came out. Look how high it is, 22.5. He got a phenomenal number, which looks like, a virtual lock right now with Zach Wilson. Because if I'm looking what it's moved to, you know how much closing line value you've gotten on that? Right now it's at 13.5. So, oh my goodness gracious, what a bet.
Wow.
Well done.
13.5. I might take the under.
Yeah. I
might still take the under.
So what a job by you getting that line early. That's a smash.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah. Well, 13.5. That's worth talking about for a second though, because what would you do with that? Because I mean, garbage time is when maybe desperation field goals can come in. You could easily see them squeaking out 16 points here. What do you think of 13.5? Because That is worth thinking about. That is a good line.
Yeah, especially in your situation where you already have the under 22.5, you could just take over 13.5. You're probably going to win both. And we got some comments in the chat. John Legeza is saying tough to go under 13.5 because of Dak's interception. That's a great point. The Jets could be struggling on offense all you want, and then a Dak Prescott interception could put them right deep into Cowboys territory and really blow that up for you, because that 13.5 is a really low bar to go under.
Yes.
So I definitely wouldn't take the under there. It's too, it's too low of a bar. But in your situation, going over, it makes a lot of sense for sure.
All right, so moving on. The next play is for the Chargers at Titans for me. Chargers covering -3. Right now, at least today, earlier, was plus 100. I'll take that. We don't know the deal with Austin Eckler's ankle. If I had to guess, I'd say he's fine. If nothing else, he was doing 50-50 splits with Joshua Kelly. I think Eckler will still play. But again, the Chargers offense looked fantastic versus Miami. Yeah, they were outdueled by the Dolphins, but that won't be a worry against Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. Even if Eckler's limited, the Chargers have such an edge at quarterback and on offense in general that I'm not sure Derrick Henry alone can even make up the difference, even if he has a monster game. You could argue the Titans offense could use a week against the Chargers defense. That's what some people are saying, like, oh, they could use a week against the Chargers defense who gave up all these points. But I see the opposite. The Chargers conceded the most yards per carry last season. Yes, Henry and Spears are capable of causing headaches, but I still don't think it'll be enough. After facing two in the Dolphins, the Chargers defense is going to be seeing everything in slow motion. It'll be like the Matrix when Neo finally realized he's just going to see things running by him. It's going to be ridiculous. Tannehill threw 3 picks at a 28.8 passer rating. He could be in for a long day against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. So, yeah, give me all the Chargers. I don't even need to wait on the Eckler news. And then my last play will be the Ravens versus Bengals. This one is interesting for me because right now the Bengals are currently 3.5-point favorites, -3.5. I made this bet back when he was 2.5. I flipped it. I made the alt spread of taking the Ravens -2.5 because for me, this is a value play. I think this is close to a toss-up at best for me. I consider this game a toss-up, and yet instead of being -2.5 or -3.5 for the Bengals. So, yeah, why not flip the script for -2.5, and I got plus 200 odds on that. I mean, it works for me. Everyone talks about the Bengals bouncing back, but that's certainly no guarantee. I expect Burrow to still be a little bit shaky with only the corpse of Joe Mixon in the backfield to bail him out if he gets in any trouble. The offensive line still blows. T. Higgins, he had 8 targets and 0 catches last week. Guess what? That wasn't Higgins' fault. A little bit was with the Browns secondary, but Burrow was not comfortable out there. So I'm not sure he'll be necessarily that comfortable this week. Again, I'm not calling for a blowout. I just think that the line is a little off here. Could I be wrong? Of course. But no one talks about the Ravens bouncing back because from what was kind of a disappointing performance, regardless of it being a victory over the Titans, I expect the Texans. I expect Lamar to improve on his 17 for 22, 169 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Also, it could improve on his 38 rushing yards against a Bengals defense that allowed 200 plus yards to Cleveland. Granted, that was Nick Chubb, but I still expect Baltimore to cook on the ground, and we could probably expect Mark Andrews back. I know I think you're on the other side of that one, Frank. So I will give you the floor to rebut it all. But again, I like the Ravens at the alt -2.5 on their side, 4 plus 200 in a pure value play.
No, I'm actually not on the other side. I actually have the Ravens plus 3.5 in one of my parlays that I wrote up at thegameday.com. And it really goes along with your points. Joe Burrow, there are reports even that he just didn't look like himself on tape. And we saw it on the box score. He threw for 80 yards. That calf injury seems to be affecting him. So they shouldn't really be laying 3.5 at home against the, similarly skilled Baltimore team that, like you said, should bounce back on offense because they were pretty underwhelming in week 1, and having Mark Andrews back is huge. And I really like what you did here in getting the alternate line instead of money line, because if Baltimore wins, there's likely a good chance it's by 3 or more. So you get that extra bit of value at plus 200 odds, as opposed to say, it's probably plus 160 for them just to win or something like that. So it's a nice little way to get even more of a payout on your wager. I like that a lot. So I'm with you on Baltimore there. And I just wanted to add one thing with the Chargers game. DeAndre Hopkins missed practice again today with an ankle issue. So, that's always concerning when they miss the Thursday practice. So if he's out, Tannehill struggled in week 1. It's going to be tough for Tennessee. I got to add that one to my card as well. I like it a lot. Let's go on to my
one
bets.
thing right before you go in, because this goes into your a previous thing you mentioned and right into your first best bet. One last thing I like that the odds are not out for yet is Aiden Hutchinson of the Lions. You mentioned earlier that the Seahawks are very likely going to be playing without the right tackle Abe Lucas, left tackle Charles Cross, which not good for Geno Smith. Aiden Hutchinson's a beast. I'm waiting for his sack props to come out. As far as right now or before the show, they have not come out yet. So I know you're going to talk about Seattle, Detroit right now, and you did earlier, but Aiden Hutchinson props, I'm all over looking for them, and I'll probably be posting one before the games start.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Seattle's likely to struggle in pass protection, like I mentioned. This game kind of reminds me last year when they played my Commanders, the Lions did. And, Aiden Hutchinson really wreaked havoc on Carson Wentz. Washington was having pass protection issues. I think a similar thing will happen here with Seattle, and they're going to really have to establish the run and get the ball out of Geno's hands quickly. And when you do that, it could lead to longer drives. It could lead to slower pace. And that's why I like the under 47.5. It opened at 51 when, coming into the season, we look at this game like, oh, damn, this is going to be a shootout. We're going to see it like last year where it was like 48-45 for Seattle in a crazy victory. But it's not the case, and the market is showing that it's gone down from 51 to 47.5. They're really projecting, Seattle maybe to struggle in pass protection, maybe Detroit playing with the lead, slows it down, feeds David Montgomery to get those, short yardage and really sustain drives and eat the clock. So I like the under. I'm going to lean with the movement here and go, despite getting a worse number than what I would have done if I got it early, but I'm still okay at 47.5. Another one that I like to take, actually, before I go to that one, I do want to say that I'm super high on Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's my overall wide receiver 1 for this week. We just saw Puka Nacua just make a mess in underneath over the middle targets against this Seattle defense. Last year, when Detroit played Seattle, the sun god, Amon-Ra, was out. So Goff fed TJ Hawkinson over the middle, and he had like 170 plus yards. I think St. Brown's going to go off in this game. His receiving yardage prop right now is 77.5. I want to get his receptions. I'm hoping it comes out at 6.5. It's not out yet. But yeah, if it's not, I'll just take the yardage. I really think he's going to have a big game.
I have I got the shrine to the sun god right here next to me. It keeps shining in throughout the entire show. It keeps getting brighter. I love him this year. Yeah, we got a bad beat on the last week with the way that game ended. Wow, the Lions came out of the gate so hard, but yeah, I believe in him totally. I'm with you. What's your last best bets for the week before we jump?
So my last one, and it's moved in their direction. So when we planned for this show, I got it at Houston money line. It was plus 106, the Houston Texans over the Indianapolis Colts. They're now favored in some spots, minus 20. I'm still with it. I know the Colts, Anthony Richardson looked pretty solid in week 1, and fantasy managers especially really like the way Shane Steichen is running that offense. Fast pace, letting AR loose, like not really putting training wheels on him. But Houston, they did a good job on defense, slowing down that Ravens offense. Like we mentioned, it was pretty underwhelming. Lamar Jackson only threw for 169 yards. He only ran for 38 yards. Well, maybe they could keep Anthony Richardson in check on the ground like they did with Lamar. That's what I'm betting on them here. I think Houston will get the running game going with Dameon Pierce much better this week. Last week was just a bad spot for them on the road against Baltimore as heavy underdogs. This should be a close game. I like them to win at home. I'm a big believer in D'Amico Ryans as the head coach. I think he's going to have them playing hard. The defense will be improved. I think they get a win here in an AFC South clash.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. Although I do like this week Anthony Richardson touchdown prop rushing touchdown. You can get it for 170. He seems like the
That's
best.
good.
He seems like the best option to score on the entire team. They're still without
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor. Hull is injured, so at plus 170, even if they're kept in check, I like Richardson to find the end zone there. So yeah, that's not bad right there. So that is that is the end of at least the main portion, the betting board of the show. Like we said, if you hung out towards the end, we're going to talk about tonight's game between the Philadelphia Eagles and Minnesota Vikings. We're going to talk a little bit of Thursday Night Football. We're going to end the show with an SGP. What's your first play tonight, Frank?
My first play tonight, and it goes special shout out to our friend on Twitter, Monotone Football. If that's Monotone football, but with only one L. That's his Twitter handle. Because when I saw him write this up, I would have landed on this bet anyway, probably. But it allowed me to bet it early, and that's TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 receptions. When I bet it, it was yesterday or the day before. I got it at minus 135. When we planned for the show, it already went to minus 166. I'm still cool playing with it here at that price because the Eagles struggled defending tight ends. We just saw Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki combined for, like Hunter Henry had like over 60 yards, I believe, and Gesicki, I think, had 30 or so. And, Hawkinson is going to be likely a big priority over the middle. You could see the Eagles pass rush get Kirk Cousins under duress. He has to get it away out of his hands quickly, check it down to Hawkinson. I prefer his catches more than yards because Hawkinson is like a 10 yards per catch type of player, and he's kind of inefficient. So you don't want him to be getting like 6 catches, but 43 yards, and then you lose the yardage. So I prefer to bet the catches here. And I think it's even gone as high as like 180 now. So if you're not comfortable with that juice, this is a great parlay piece in a game that I think, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense will be inefficient through the air. The Eagles defense is good on the perimeter. Darius Slay can slow down Justin Jefferson a bit. I know you're going to talk about Jordan Addison probably. I like him too, but I feel like this is the safest player prop for tonight.
All right, I'll cruise through my two. We'll get to the SGP. First, I love Dallas Goedert. This was an early line play. Over 38.5 yards, I got him for minus 114. It's now up to 45.5. Bet early. Maybe for future in here when we promote the show early in the week, maybe we'll put out a couple of early plays we really like, and on the tweets and a couple of things like that. We'll make sure we get out some early plays for you guys. But I still like it at 45.5. I mean, 38.5 was ridiculous. Complete overreaction by the books. He had 0 points in week 1. That's not going to happen again. For the same, I think that. It's important to check lines early. Like I said, complete overreaction. I love over 38.5. And on the other side, Jordan Addison, I have him at over 39.5 yards for minus 115. Kind of the same deal with Hawkinson. I believe that, they'll be all over. They'll be all over guarding the outside and trying to bottle up the issues out there. So I think Jordan Addison at over 39.5 as a standalone bet at minus 115 is great. I couldn't even think of Justin Jefferson's name, so I stumbled and said taking care of business on the outside. But there you go, Justin Jefferson. They'll obviously be trying to bottle up Justin Jefferson. So yeah, I love that. So to end the show, we do have an SGP we'll put up on the screen right now, which is a little more a few more plays. We have 6 plays for you. Right now, you can find this over on BetMGM for plus 775. We already said the money line for the Eagles. I think we both like the spread at 6.5. But again, if you're going with especially a 6-leg parlay, go with the money line. Alexander Mattison under 64.5. We didn't really talk about that too much, but I mean, the Minnesota Vikings do not run much last year or this year. Our friend Stu over Stuart, he's actually in the chat room right now, but Monotone Football, he really turned me on to this one. The Vikings, especially in a script where they're going to be running for behind. Love Madison's all under 64.5 rushing yards here. Kirk Cousins, 25 plus pass completions. He's the garbage time king. He's not very good in prime time. He's not very good at winning these kind of games. But if the game has no pressure on him and it's garbage time, it's Kirk Cousins time. So I think 25 pass completions is good for him. We have Goddard, 40 plus yards, Addison, 45 plus yards here, and the Hawkinson 5 plus receptions, which we all talked about. So you add those 6 together, you have plus 775, and I absolutely love that SGP. Frank, you have any other thoughts here before we close it out?
No, I love what you said. Love that Madison one, especially that he's an inefficient runner as it is. They have offensive line issues. It's a negative game script with them as heavy road underdogs. Love that one. We talked about Hawkinson. I really don't see Philly losing at home to Minnesota here. Addison's in a good spot with James Bradbury, the corner, out as well. And to your point about Cousins, if the offense is going to be inefficient, you might see, shorter passes that could be more completions. That works well. Love that SGP. Love our week 2 show. Let's have a profitable week. Let's enjoy tonight's game. Hopefully Nick Sirianni gives the damn ball to DeAndre Swift, but let's see how it goes.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the inaugural episode of Better Plays Ahead. Again, I'm Matt Williams, Frank Ammirante. You can follow me on Twitter at MATTWI77IMS. If you have any questions, we appreciate all the feedback. And make sure you subscribe to everything. Follow the Game Day NFL, the Game Day HQ. Follow the Game Day Action on YouTube. Frank, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at FAMMIRANTE TFJ on X or Twitter, whatever you want to say. I also am on Instagram. I'll start posting there as well. You can find my weekly betting content at thegameday.com, along with fantasy football rankings and other content. And of course, I'm always into interacting, debating sports on Twitter, and talking bets. So it's been a pleasure today. Let's get some wins.
All right, let's make some money, everyone. See you later. Good luck.